Well, welcome Jesse to the podcast. Thank you for joining me today. How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you for having me on. It's really, really great to be here. I'm doing very well. Very happy that I've been able to come on. We've had a couple delays getting this one started, dealing with wedding venues and all that stuff. Busy schedule.
How's that going, by the way?
Very good. I've actually secured the venue and the date. It's going to be taking place later this year.
Awesome. That's exciting, man. Congrats to the both of you.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited too.
Well, it's really awesome to have you as a guest. As I kind of told you off camera, I am honestly was a fan of the show when it first came out. Definitely now feels like ages ago, like 8 to 10 years ago is when or 8 years ago is when you decided to finalize and stop doing B.O.N.E, and now you're bringing it back, which we'll get into. But for those people who don't necessarily know who you are and might not recognize the name Darknesskirby2, could you give kind of a little bit of a recap about who you are and what you're about?
Yeah. I'm just a regular guy who likes to tell stories and entertain people. I've been around on YouTube for a very long time. I was making Halo Reach Machinimas way back in the 2011, 2012 era. I was the creator of B.O.N.E along with my good friend KG the All-Star, who he's still around too, helping now that I'm back. But yeah, so I've been around a very long time. I guess I've gone through different phases on my channel. Way early on, I was doing live action skits with my early high school, middle school friends. And then after that, I was doing Smash Brothers videos. I was doing gameplay commentaries after that. All of those old videos, they were a bit cringy, so I ended up deleting them at some point before B.O.N.E started. And then I was going to start making more video game playthroughs and commentaries. And I remember I bought a better capture card back, I think around 2011. And then my friend KG suggested, hey, we should make a Halo Machinima, since both of us were huge fans of the old Halo 3 Machinima classics, the pregame lobbies, the fill, the RB and the Chief, and all that stuff. So from there, we ended up coming together and we started the B.O.N.E series that ran for 6 episodes, and we had some shorts come out. And then unfortunately, we did end up canceling it around, I'd say like 9 years ago, 8-9 years ago, we ended up canceling it. I was doing Minecraft videos for a long time after that, and then eventually I did disappear from YouTube for a long time.
So on the backs of the Minecraft videos, kind of talk to me about the brand of Darknesskirby2, because it's a little funny when you think about it, because your logo is Castle Clashers, your name is Kirby, it's like Smash Bros, your content, your most popular video is Minecraft, but a lot of people know you for your Halo Machinima. So like, how does all of this create the channel of Darknesskirby2?
Yeah, so I know my brand is a little bit all over the place, and that I think is just a consequence of being around for so long on YouTube. I created the channel originally back in 2008, for example. So back then, when I was making the channel name, I was a big Smash Bros. I would Smash Bros. Fan. I would play Smash Bros. Melee a lot on the GameCube, and I would main Kirby, so that's where the name came from. I thought it was a cool name back then, and I just kind of stuck with it over time. And then, yeah, the Minecraft videos, we used the Castle Crasher skin, so I was using the orange Castle Crasher, KG was using the green Castle Crasher when we were doing our Minecraft series, so that's where the profile picture itself came from, and some of that branding came from. So we pulled it basically from the Minecraft skins we were using in those videos that became so popular. At one point, I think we did have a more Halo-focused branding, but then we kind of switched it as Minecraft became the bigger focus at the time.
Right, with the Minecraft video, your most popular video with 1.6 million views, which is kind of ridiculous to say out loud.
I don't know how that one.
And it's just part one, but I think it's interesting when it does come to branding with especially in the Halo Machinima space, because a lot of people will change their channel names, change their company names. I know I've changed mine a couple times, and even my gamer tags. So what has Darknesskirby just kind of been the thing that's just stuck, and it's been the one consistency that everyone has kind of known you as? so why haven't you like changed it up to maybe like a studio name to like encapsulate like you and KG? And is it just because of like that's the name recognition at that point?
It is a little bit about that being the name recognition. I've stuck with it for so long, and that's what people know me as. But it also comes down to the fact that I'm not really trying to be like a proper studio or anything. I am just a guy with my friends who just wanted to make entertaining videos and tell some entertaining stories. So I didn't really see it as a big deal as trying to brand it very professionally like that. And people knew me. People would recognize me. People recognized the channel, so I figured the name worked out, and that's what I go by anyways. So I just didn't mind leaving it as it is. I think I did contemplate at some point a long time ago probably changing the name, but it's just a decision at the time that I didn't think it was really necessary, and then I stuck with it, and now I've stuck with it for many years, since 2008.
And yeah, I think I kind of want to before we jump into the bone side of that, which is is what you're mainly known for and what you're coming back for. And I kind of want to talk about, so 8 9 years ago, you guys said you were done. You said that there wasn't. I remember you saying that there wasn't necessarily a high enough reward for what you were producing. It was kind of a big, massive project at the time, and now you're bringing it back. Kind of what is different from that point in time, as far as your preparedness to be able to work on Bone again, and where are you hoping for this story to kind of go from here? Like, what do you have more to offer this universe?
So back when we first canceled the series, I did always have this feeling that I really wish that we didn't. It was a series that we had poured our hearts and souls into going up to it in those first 6 episodes, and I really did feel like we should have continued, but there were a lot of factors that were working against us at the time. One of them was the reward factor, as you mentioned, but everyone was becoming busier and busier at the time as well. So it was very difficult to coordinate various sessions and coordinate discussions about the episode. Episode 7 itself, that's the one that we left off on. It ended up being way overly massive for the single episode, and I, over time, as we were collecting voice acting and as we started actually working on it, I became very unhappy with the script actually, and that kind of demoralized me a little bit while we were working on it. There was one body acting session that I did early on that was a total nightmare, like the worst one I've ever had to deal with, and I've never, even since coming back, I haven't had to deal with one as bad as that one was. And the final straw at the time was that there was an accident that led to all of the Bone related files on my computer being deleted. So that was why we ended up canceling at the time. But I never really wanted to cancel it fully. I really did wish that we could make it to the end. Like I mentioned before, I do like to entertain people. I do like to tell stories. I would have wanted people to see the ending. I would have wanted to give the characters the proper ending that we had in mind. We did have everything mostly planned out at the time in terms of where it was going to go. 10 episodes. Here's what happens in each one. Here's what happens in 7, 8, 9, 10. But since I've actually fully came back in March of 2022, the first thing I did was I fully fleshed out every single remaining episode and every single thing that happens, all the scenes, all the story. So everything is fully now planned out. And I think that makes it a lot easier to go back into it and to continue and push towards the end. I think I've grown since then in terms of what I want the style to be of the series and being able to kind of visualize what I want to happen and visualize certain scenes and put things together a bit more than before. So while my schedule is very crazy and very busy, and along with other people's, I do think that that having that idea of where it's going to go and what exactly I want to do with it, and taking the time with more experience now to rewrite certain for example, do a complete overhaul of episode 7 to make it something I'm more happy with and change the story behind it to match that too. The first thing I'm doing is a remake of the first episode as well, and that's fully scripted. I'm very happy with how that's come out, and I'm just very excited to share it with people. And I think as a hobby, it's something that I think we'll be able to put a lot into, and it'll come out something that I think a lot of people will like. I don't know if I answered your question there.
No, you did. I think I think a lot of people who are just viewers of machinima content, or who are not necessarily, who are like outside of kind of the machinima space, don't realize how much goes into a machinima project, and how when you're making a script, I feel like every director has had this point of making a script and then getting so far into production and then realizing it's not totally what you envisioned. Like, there was maybe a couple lines of dialogue that didn't make sense. There were scene changes. There was a body acting session that went wrong. And when you go into the editing room with it, it just doesn't flush out to where you want it to be. And how as a director do you overcome those kind of issues now? Do you view that you should like just finish the project and just get over that hump, or do you kind of feel like a restart is needed and is in order to be able to move forward creatively and bring out the best product for your audience?
I definitely want to bring out the best product for the audience. In terms of the restart, it's only really episode 1 that I'm going to be doing the remake of, and then I'm going to leave the existing episodes alone, and then we're going to jump into episode 7, 8, 9, 10 and finish it up. So I do think that I am going into it very positive. There is a lot that's involved, but I do have a lot of motivation to it this time. And now that everything is a little bit more kind of planned out, and I am feeling a lot better about the script, knowing exactly what I want to do with it, and having that kind of idea of what's going to happen completely, and where I want to go with it. And I guess just having matured a bit since then too, and being able to kind of really look at these in a lot more detail than I would before, because going into it now, I'm definitely making sure to be a lot more strict before I get to that point where I'm sending things out. I'm making sure that other people are giving their feedback on it a lot more than before. So I am taking a lot of precautions, because I do very much want this to come out good, and I want people to like it.
I think there's a kind of a process of thinking that the machinima making can feel like it's a job. Like, you talked about how you didn't want to be a studio, how you just want to tell stories. Where is the line for you when you're making a product and you're wanting to tell this story? You want the best of the best to come out, so your viewers enjoy it, so you're proud of it, so your cast enjoys it. At what point do you think that where's the line as far as it being just for fun and it being this is a production that I am heading?
I guess it kind of depends on the person and the person's mentality who's actually creating it, since just at no point since coming back, so far I've already put out the trailer for the upcoming project, and then I have put out now the prisoner short. I never really saw any of those as being a job, since I am kind of just doing it on my own time when I'm free. I am the one mainly heading the production. I do have my very great crew. Luke Noble 7, I'm diffusing Ben from Farsight Studio, and we are kind of just working together and having a good time with it. Really, there's not a lot of pressure to like rush things out. For example, I'm making sure everything is good before sending things out, rather than like trying to just rush it out as fast as possible or anything like that. Back when I was doing YouTube 4, it did feel a lot more like a job, since on top of doing the machinimas, I was trying to get Minecraft videos, for example, out every few days. We were partnered with a network at the time, but they were very terrible. I don't really want to mention them too much. So it did feel a lot more like a job back then, since there was that schedule. And on top of that, we were trying to get the machinima out, and we were trying to think of ways to monetize it. None of that stuff I'm even really thinking about anymore. Like, I just want to make the series, tell the story at this point. I'm not worrying about monetizing anything. I'm not worrying about schedules. Although I do want to get the series out, I guess, in a reasonable amount of time, of course, but not to the point that it's going to cause me to go nuts. So but I think just in terms of if other people want to kind of know the line, I think the important part is just that you are having fun making it, really. That's mostly what it comes down to. Even if you are wanting to make it the best thing possible, if you're having fun with the people that are working on it with you, if you guys are having a good time, then I think that's a good thing.
100%. And you mentioned, and I don't want to get too far off on this track, but I am just curious as someone who also makes machinima. Like back like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, you talked about monetization and you brought it up here. How does monetization work as being a Halo creator? And was it mostly just on the Minecraft side because of copyrighted music? And can you how was your experience in that monetizing space?
So way back when we were doing this, we did try to monetize certain Halo videos. We were able to be successful in some cases, but a lot of the music that would be used would end up blocking us from being able to do that. The monetization option would be taken off. But there was episode 6 part 2 of B.O.N.E, where we did try to use only royalty free music. And then we did monetize that at the time when we were still partnered. But I'm going to be honest, I think it suffered a lot because of the fact that we tried to use that royalty free music. I think episode 6 part 2, the music there, that was the weakest part of the episode. Sound effects too, we were trying to use royalty free sound effects just in case, so we could avoid any potential trouble if we were trying to monetize. I don't think it was worth it, in our case at least. I think the style that we had, the type of things that we were doing with the series originally, we weren't really able to do when we did try to take that approach with it. And while I still do think it came out good, I think it could have been a lot better if we could have used the music choice that we wanted in the first place with that one. But I think that's also a bit limited by the fact that the royalty-free resources back then were a lot more weren't as good basically as they might be now. There were a lot less options, and the network that we were with didn't even provide us with royalty-free selections or libraries like some other networks would offer to some people I knew from certain channels. They would have access to more like better stuff. So we went with what we could do with that. I know there are people now who do try to monetize, and if you're able to do it, then great. If you're happy with how the videos and the content is coming out, then excellent, good stuff, great. But I don't think I'm going to try to do that again this time. I'm not too fussed about it. I mostly just want to put out good content. I want people to enjoy it and come along for the ride. That's what I'm mostly focused on.
I do think the music aspect has definitely completely changed in the community, though. Like, as you said, the sources were very limited back then. And now there's like Epidemic Sound, there's Artlist, there's all these royalty-free sites that you can pay monthly for. But we've also, as a community, gained a lot more composers. Like Aaron Weatherford did original stuff for Lineage under Ascend Hyperion. Legacy Orchestra, I believe was his name. He did stuff with Mateo Arts. And there's been a lot of composers that have... Machinima has really turned into this huge network of a ton of people all pouring in with different skills to make a full-edged production, making full-edged films. And so that's kind of goes back to that feeling of a studio. So how does... I am curious about your process and your film style with having the few members that you have making the B.O.N.E series as of right now, and having kind of... you almost, I feel like, have done a traditional way of going about making machinima, using copyrighted music, working on Halo Reach, having a small crew. Talk to me about the process of making a B.O.N.E episode now, and maybe if I'm a little bit wrong about how you make it.
Yeah, so we are using Master Chief Collection at this point. I do like how crisp it is. I do personally like the 60 FPS. So the process itself is fairly similar. I am using a similar editing program to what I had back then. I got it again on my current computer. Very good computer, able to run stuff no problem. But I am doing it on Master Chief Collection, basically. We're still doing the body acting on it the same kind of way that we did it before. But I haven't had a repeat of the Nightmare session from a long time ago, luckily. And then the filming is a little bit different too, since you can't really save theater clips the normal way that you could back on the old Reach. So I have to extract them from the game files and save them on a folder on my desktop, basically, and then put them back into the game files when I want to record it later. So that would be a big difference. But editing wise, it is kind of the same style, but I am trying to go the same kind of like method as before. I mean, but I am trying to use the new techniques that I know, go with the new style that I'm creating with it, and making sure that the editing kind of matches along with that. And I think the editing Other people can always tell me if I'm wrong about that. But I do think the editing is a lot better than it was before. I do think that I have come a long way from before, and I have done other test renders and test clips where I do think those have come out fairly good. I am going to expand on the kind of the themes and the style that we had back in the past, where it was a bit more vibrant, kind of an adventure feel. Some stuff was a little more over the top, some more supernatural elements, some darker elements. So I'm going to be expanding on all of that going forward this time around, and I think the editing style is very has improved a lot to kind of match that. But the overall process itself is very similar, and I have had people tell me that they feel like they're back in 2011 when they're watching the new stuff that I'm putting out, and I guess that's not a bad thing. It is creating that kind of feeling of nostalgia, and that's something I'm going for also, of that feeling of watching machinimas back then. That's something that I think has been carrying on with the new stuff that's been coming out from me.
I think it is. You have to do Halo Reach kind of a certain way these days, because there's you can either have the nostalgia route, which it seems like that's what your audience is feeling, and there's also this feels old, why aren't you moving on to a different game? And I've had these talks with a lot of directors about how Halo Reach is the game that they're sticking with because they don't want to move on, or they don't see Halo 4, Halo 5, or Halo Infinite as viable alternatives. And so they're stuck in this game being 13 years old. And luckily, as you said, there's 60 FPS. It's high quality. It looks a lot better than what we had in 2010. And what is special about Halo Reach to you that makes coming back to B.O.N.E and coming back to Halo Reach kind of nostalgic for you, even? Because the original B.O.N.E series was done in Halo Reach, and so that's probably your main driving factor to go back to Reach. But if you could go to any game and you could have it all redone, would you have still stuck with Reach, and why?
So the main driving factor, yeah, it would have been the fact that the original was done on Reach. I had a lot of fun making the original back then too. So, and I'm very familiar with the ins and outs of all the tools that come with Reach. A lot of that was left in the Master Chief Collection, other than the strange like file saving stuff. But in terms of the actual tools, and they've expanded on the tools too in some ways, that like adding new Forge items that come in handy too for certain things. I've had to look through them. I've incorporated some of those onto
duplicating items now.
Sets. That too. So yeah, definitely Reach is the one that I did it on in the first place. And if I'm gonna finish the series, I do kind of have I have no problem with it, but that is sort of the requirement to finish it the way that it started, especially when the newer games don't even have the same tools anymore. You can't even really use elites anymore. Walking animations, half the time, I feel like they're broken in some of the newer games. Like if you've ever seen, I think it was in Halo 4, if you turn your Spartan a certain way, he starts tap dancing. So I think, realistically for me, Reach just does feel like the one with the most tools. Even in Halo Infinite, you have to unlock from what I recall, you have to unlock the color purple and stuff like that, and it just doesn't seem very feasible. I know some people make it work, but there are just a lack of certain tools for B.O.N.E specifically that I would need from Reach. Even the B.O.N.E character himself, with his ability to act like a Forge monitor, create certain items. The Forge palettes in some of the later games themselves are a little bit, they come across a little bit wonky, and I don't know how if I could even make some of that work if I had the option to do so. Maybe things have been fixed since back when I was remembering Halo 4 for Xbox 360, and every time you would go back into human mode, you'd have a loading screen, and the theaters would usually be a little janky. But Halo Reach definitely feels, to me personally, like the one that B.O.N.E could be done on. If I wanted to make something new, to be honest, Master Chief Collection Halo 3 seems like a good choice. It seems very crisp now with the higher quality, higher colors, everything. If I wanted to make something completely new, I might do it on there. I do actually have an idea for a standalone machinima that I do want to do at some point, maybe after the remake. It's a horror themed one, since that's a genre that I really, really love personally. I made way back, I made two machinima, Facility and Facility 2. Those were really fun to make, horror machinimas That's a genre that I like, and I incorporate some of that into Bone with some of the darker, creepier elements that come up through the surface sometimes. But yeah, I think if I had to make something new, it might be Halo 3. Maybe I can make Halo Infinite work somehow. I might have to look into it a little bit more. But there is something horror related that I would want to make at some point too, and I might be able to use a new game for that.
And horror is really a untapped genre in the Halo machinima scene. Like there is a few here and there. There is some goofy ones. There is stuff that people really try to make something creepy, and I think it's something that is relatively difficult to do because of how limiting the Halo games are. And to tell a compelling story without having facial expressions, without having like it's all voice work. So how do you
Yeah.
you bring that to the forefront to let in a horror context?
There's a few different ways to do it. When I was making Facility, one of the decisions I made was to keep it both of them all entirely in first person. So it's basically following somebody kind of walking around, experiencing things as they go. In Facility 2, the only other real character you see other than like the monsters is a forge monitor who's mechanical, so he's not going to have facial expressions anyways. And then the way you make up for everything else is you have to get the sound design correct, and you have to get the atmosphere correct. So you have to do some editing to give it a good dark feeling atmosphere, and you want to get the sound design to be to make up for that as well. And Facility and Facility 2 got a lot of positive feedback at the time. A lot of people did find it to be very like they got scared by some of the stuff that was in it. It seemed to make them creeped out. I don't know if that was just the audience, those specific audience members maybe wouldn't work on anybody, like on everybody, but it did seem to get a good reception at the time. So I think stuff like that can work. There's different little tricks that you can use to still make up for the lack of like facial expressions and certain things, camera tricks that you can use to make things feel uncomfortable. I think ambience is the biggest part, like getting the mood right and the setting correct. That can play a big part of it. To go into a little bit about my idea that I'm going to be kind of fleshing out and hopefully making down the road, the thought that I was thinking was, for example, somebody found footage of a VCR tape walking through a small town trying to lift the curse, and then you can get the atmosphere right, get the ambience right. I think that would make up for a lot of it.
So we've put it off here for a minute, but times have 100% changed since like you did this before. I mean, you're now getting married, as we said. You're bringing back B.O.N.E. You're finishing the series. Talk to me about coming back and knowing that you have this audience who is attached to B.O.N.E. and coming back, finishing the series that you've done with this almost completely different life than what you had before.
The reception has been very heartwarming. A lot of people coming out saying that they love the series from before and that they want to help out. When I first made the decision to return, and I initially started with my old crew members that I was still in contact with. So I gathered some of them, and then I was actually reaching out to some people on like Twitter and Instagram saying, hey guys, would you want to help out? Let's restart the series. Let's keep it going. One of the first people I reached out that way was VZ Productions. And he was very helpful early on too in giving me motivation and pushing me in the right direction. And then from there, I ended up meeting Meta Infinite and Cass Scarab from High Council Media, and they've been absolutely wonderful and great to me and so helpful, and I appreciate everything so much from them. And I've reconnected with so many people that I knew before, and I've met some new people. I've met new people too that I didn't know back then, and everyone's been so friendly and so great, and I've been really, really happy to have gotten back in contact. It feels like getting an old community back together, I guess. Back in the past, like in the Skype days, things felt a lot more distant. You had like little isolated planets of some people who would kind of work together, but they might not interact too much outside of it. Things feel a lot more interconnected. It's like rejoining civilization, basically. Things are a lot more connected now, and everyone's a lot more helpful now. I guess since there's such a much less smaller group of potential viewers with the state of Halo and everything, that everyone wants to work together and make sure people can see each other's content. Definitely a big change, and I've definitely been happy with the welcome back, and it's good to be back.
It is definitely interesting when we used to make Machinima using Skype, because you could only have about 20 people in those groups. And so it wasn't necessarily a sense of community. It was, this is my production team, and these are the people I'm working with day after day. And so it's definitely a completely different landscape when now, like High Council Media, like Innovative Monitor, like Lazy Bunch, like all these different groups can now build a community and actually have a direct connection with their fans and actually get direct feedback. Whereas like before, you really couldn't do that. It was just like, hey, I'm in a couple Skype groups, let's send it to 20, 30 different Skype groups that I'm randomly in, hope they see it, and then hope the video does well on YouTube. And I think that's also what's very interesting about, like, you and I off camera talked about viewership and like how to get a machinima to be popular. And I find it very fascinating that before, when it was pretty much all done through just direct messages, and tags were kind of a big thing. Everyone was searching for Halo Machinima because of Red versus Blue and the popularity of Halo. It's interesting that the community has almost gotten closer, but viewership has completely dropped off. And I don't know, like, what is your experience with coming back? And like, we'll get into your short that just came out, but kind of viewing the landscape a bit differently.
Yeah, view-wise, Halo is in not a great state, I would say, at this point, and there's a lot less people searching for Halo, and as a result, there's a lot less people searching for Halo Machinimas. I would agree with you there. It is a lot harder, I think, to pull in those views unless you have to send it around to all the Discord servers and hope that some people might give a more direct announcement, hope that some of the other maybe out-of-the-box methods that you can think of might pull in a couple more views. I've used a couple to try to get some more people to see it. But yeah, it's definitely a different landscape in terms of the popularity of machinimas themselves, it seems. Now, some of them I do see can pull in a lot of views, and that's great. But I think there's a lot more luck involved there, since the actual audience is a lot smaller. But yeah, the community is definitely a lot closer back then. Would have been great to have this kind of closeness with the community and the potential audience like it had back then. I think if those two were together, I think Machinimas could have taken over YouTube. Who knows?
So, Bone Prisoner, we've kind of mentioned it a couple times. This is your first, the first entry really back into the universe. Tell me about the story of Bone Prisoner. Tell me about like what's special about this being your first stink back, basically.
So this one is basically setting the stage for episode 7. Which is where we left off last time. It focuses very heavily on the elites, which we haven't really gotten too much of in the series. We had a couple scenes with the elites, but they're fairly short. But this one I fleshed things out. So as compared to the original Halo story, B.O.N.E has entirely different culture and history and lore for the Covenant and the elites. And that was going to come out in episode 7, but I wanted to kind of set the groundwork there so it doesn't kind of just hit people like a sack of bricks when episode 7 switches to a very heavily elite-focused episode. So this was kind of setting some of the story beats that are going to be present in episode 7. For example, with the administrator's daughter being the rightful administrator, with Lord Gon having certain thoughts about where the Empire is going and having some other plans that'll be seen more later on in the series as well. Sometimes when we would be doing the series, we would also do these kind of short side stories, and it fleshes certain things out that we can't really fit into the episodes, and something that if people want to get some more of that story, they can go and also search it out for more Bone content. One of the other ones, a good example of it was the Kenny short, where it goes through the creature of episode 4 and where it came from, and it was actually a creation from Delta UNSC and Admiral O'Donnell, the organization that Delta Squad, the characters that this series follows, are from. And it kind of gives you a more expanded view of like what's going on with them, that there's more going on secretly behind the scenes with them that could end up coming out later on. But Prisoner was kind of setting up future story beats for episode 7, and I think it would I think it's done a good job of that for sure. I'm very happy with the way it came out.
So you mentioned earlier how you're redoing episode 1, and you already had the script done. I think something that a lot of people in the community see often is going back and remaking old stuff. And some people are a fan of it. Some people are tired of it. I think a lot of people see like Fordo, who of Blue Streak Studios, who did Oblivion a couple times and kept going back and redoing it. I know for Ryan of High Council Media has done Odyssey a couple different ways, and the most recent one came out a couple months ago. So why is it important for you to redo episode 1, and why only episode 1 and then going to episode 7?
So episode 1 itself, it's the first real machinima that me and KG had made back then. It's a very rough one. Now people do think it's some people have said that it's very like it's a classic, has charm to it, but it is very rough. And back then when we were making episode 1, we didn't really have the story kind of planned out or know where it was going. It was kind of a bit isolated, I guess. And then we tried to kind of like connect some things back to it later on. But now that I have the entirety of the remaining story and fully fleshed out and fully plotted, there's some stuff I wanted to go back and add in episode 1 to kind of set up some of the later story beats. Even stuff that that was mentioned in the other existing episodes. For example, we would see other Spartan squads show up, and then within the same episode, some or all of that squad would be dead. And that would kind of be that. So one thing that I'm doing in the remake that I'm changing, I'm also including some of those other Spartans. I'm having them be present there. I'm having us kind of meet them a little bit first. We'll get to know them a little bit briefly and see them in action a bit, so that when they show up later and then they kind of die, it's not as just kind of like, oh, okay, as it might have felt to some people before. And then there's certain other aspects of it that I'm adding in for very important story bits that we haven't actually seen yet, just so it doesn't really come out of nowhere. Now, there are certain things that might be added that might not be everybody's cup of tea. I'm prepared for that, but it is the way that I am planning to do it. But I think the remake is going to help the series a lot. There's a lot more that we can kind of build and start growing. And I think the other episodes staying as they are, they're all going to stay canon. Everything will still feed into it. Everything is still, none of those are going to change. So I think it'll still work out. I think it'll still be a betterment. I think around episode 3 was where there was massive improvement in the episodes kind of started. 4 is actually still my favorite episode, and a lot of people really love 5 as their favorite episode. I don't think they need to change. There are different voice actors now, given that some people have been lost. There are some different ones. There are some returning ones. That is just a consequence of being away for so long and continuing something so long after. But really, I don't think those episodes themselves need to be remade. I think episode 1, improving the starting point, can kind of let everything flow from there.
So maybe you've answered this question before, and maybe I misheard it, but what is B.O.N.E complete? Like, when is it complete? Is episode 7 extended and it's going to be the finale? Is there a few more episodes after that? Where's the completion point of the B.O.N.E story?
Completion has always been episode 10, and actually I have plotted out that after episode 10 there's going to be like a final epilogue, and then that's the ending, and that's going to be it.
Have you
very simple answer.
It's a very, very simple, the most simple of today, but what do you so B.O.N.E universe at that point, will that be the ending of it? Will you ever want to bring that character back? Will you ever want to see it in, like, I know some people who have liked seen like extra pieces to the universe, like the Running Dead universe had connections with Returning the Favor 3 from Arc Element Studios. Would you ever want to see those added on pieces to the B.O.N.E universe, or do you want, this is the collection of the B.O.N.E universe, no one touch it, including yourself?
I'd definitely be open if other people wanted to kind of expand onto it in certain ways, but I definitely want to make sure that it fits with the lore and the story and everything as well. I mean, that's not something I'd be opposed to, after it's finished and all that. But realistically, the epilogue ending is meant to kind of be the ending. I want to give the characters like a conclusion, finality to their story arcs and everything. So I don't think there'll be too much after that. Maybe a fun little short or something, or maybe a not so fun short. But realistically, that epilogue would be the ending of the series from my end.
Starting the series 10 years ago, and now having kind of the epilogue actually in sight, redoing episode 1, finishing episode 7, going 8, 9, and 10, and then the epilogue. What once you hit that epilogue point, what is that going to mean to you?
At that point, once I've hit that epilogue, I'm going to feel like I've accomplished what I set out to do 10 years ago. I think it's going to be a very positive moment and something to celebrate, really. It's something that I'm coming back hoping to get to that point. It's just something that I really, really would have wanted to reach back then. And now I have the chance to do that, and I have the chance to finish telling this story that I was so excited to tell.
Which I think is the most exciting thing for me, because I hate it when properties don't get to be finished. I think about Blue Flame Studios with their Island of the Dead and Land of the Dead. I think of I'm lost of what the other properties are at the top of my head, but there are a lot of people who don't get the chance to finish their projects because either they get tired of this craft, or they lose files, as in your case with B.O.N.E, or they just want to move on to something else, and they don't think this is for them anymore. So I think it's awesome that you're coming back and you're able to really complete this story to a full that people can really enjoy who come back to your channel. But
sorry, I think there might have been some lag there.
No, it's all good. The for audience who not knowing, we have a little bit of a space between us, and so some things are not exactly registering on the other side. But I guess I have a bit of a fun question for you that's kind of connected to B.O.N.E. So
sure,
way back when, some people will know, Ro and Nitrox did an animation battle, and this included Thomas versus Spy 1. How included were you in this project? How much did you know it was happening? How did you feel about it at its conclusion? And like kind of that overall project as itself, what would you think of it?
From what I remember back then, Nitrox asked KG and I if Thomas could be used for that series, and we said definitely sure. That was something we thought it would be really cool to have Thomas included in something, to have our characters included in something. The actual process of the video, we weren't included, but we didn't mind. We just thought it was really cool that our character was being included in something like that. And realistically, I have actually gone back and watched some of those videos about the Machinima versus fairly recently. It was a really cool idea at the time, and I think if that continued and was expanded on and improved upon, it could have ended up being something really, really, really special. Even back then, it was special to us, just having somebody want to include our character in that. But yeah, it was definitely something that we were really, really happy about, and we thought it was really, really cool. And thank you to Nitrox for asking us and including us in that.
I think it definitely was something interesting because we didn't. There's a lot of people who have been trying to create a legacy for their characters, and I think it's a cool thing to look back on, to be like, oh yeah, I remember this character very vividly, and because this is like. It's weird to look at Machinima versus now, but I look at it as the Machinima community's like Iron Man and their Captain America. Like it's the name brand characters that we love and we love to look back on. And I wonder if anything could be done with that today now with like some of the newer characters, or if like it doesn't even have to be Machinima versus.
I think a lot of people, even without really remembering B.O.N.E, I think they know the Scottish guy from Machinima.
Right.
That's what it seems to. A lot of my characters, some people might not know the names, but as soon as they say, "Oh, the red guy," "Oh, the orange guy," "Oh, the Scottish guy," "Oh, yeah, I remember that now," is what I'll get.
A lot of people that I have talked to when I was like mentioning I was going to do this podcast with you, they were like, "Who's that again?" And then I said, "Oh, they did B.O.N.E," and then like they're like, "Oh shoot, that's who that was," and like they would, like a lot of people I don't think realize because it's been so long, right, since that series came out, and so
Yeah.
it is really cool to see that finally continue, but kind of at a offhand question, so. It ended that animation ended in like obscurity. They didn't tell who won, of course. So who do you think in your heart you probably think Thomas won, but do you think Spy 1 beat out Thomas?
This is a difficult question to answer just by the nature of the fact that I know now how the series is going to play out, and I know that Thomas's, I guess, strengths and abilities are going to actually increase as the episodes progress, and there's new abilities that he's going to be gaining that are quite powerful, I'd say. Like I mentioned before, part of the B.O.N.E style and theme is that it is kind of an adventure with some over the top things. So there are going to be some over the top abilities that we're going to see come out from that people learn. And there's a new one that I'm incorporating into episode 1, the remake as well. I think with all of that together, Thomas would have won back then if it was just on its own. I'm not too sure. I mean, he's a very skilled soldier as well. Maybe it would have ended up being a draw.
It would have been a draw. That's interesting. So, life and death situation. You say it might be a draw. That's interesting.
That's the old Thomas. New Thomas, I think, would end up being able to pull off a win there. He has a lot of options in his arsenal.
Gotcha. Well, kind of to slowly build us to the wrap up point here. I kind of just want your overall feelings over not the B.O.N.E series, looking back at it, looking over the Machinima landscape now, kind of what does everything kind of look at to you? What are your thoughts on just the Machinima process as a whole, and what has changed, and what you're really excited for in this new era of Machinima?
I think things have, like I mentioned before, things have definitely become a lot closer together with the different groups and directors, and I think that is definitely something very positive. I do look back on B.O.N.E very, very fondly. I do think that it was very enjoyable and entertaining. I think we had a lot of fun. Me, KG, and our other friends, we had a lot of fun making it back then. So I would say definitely I have a very positive memory about the whole thing. Even those old episodes, even 1 and 2, there's a lot of charm to them. I think we definitely had a lot of fun back then. But yeah, things are definitely a lot different, and I think in a more positive way than they used to be back in the old days. I am very excited to continue and make the new episodes. The one I'm most excited to get to is actually episode 9. And my friend Ben from Farsight Studios, he's going to kill me when we get to that episode, because it does involve a animated character that's going to be very heavily featured in that one as well. And he's the one doing the animation. We saw a little bit of it in the B.O.N.E Returns trailer with some people. Actually, the analytics are pretty funny, because that's the most rewatched part. And I guess it's just people going, huh? Which kind of made me laugh when I saw that. But yeah, episode 9 is the one I'm actually most excited for, and I hope I can get to that part soon.
Awesome, man. Well, just want to say thank you so much for giving me your time and for sitting talking with me. I really enjoyed really getting to reminisce about the nostalgia of when you did this before, and I'm really excited for what you do next, man. Even post B.O.N.E, the horror shorts sound amazing. I'm really excited, and I hope you keep creating.
Yeah, for sure, and I do appreciate you inviting me to come on. It's definitely been a really good time, and I'm really glad that we got to talk. And yeah, for sure. You know, when after Bone, I do think at that point, when I get to that point, I might go back and retire again, since that is really the main thing I wanted to come back and do. But you never know. Who knows what's going to happen? It has. I'm just doing this as a fun hobby at this point. So maybe there's more that'll come after. Definitely some stuff I want to do in between. But yeah, I'm anticipating a lot of fun, and I hope everybody is able to have a good time coming along for the ride, and everyone can have a nice, entertaining trip on the Bone train.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I thoroughly appreciate you guys listening this long. Of course, Darkness Kirby's links will be in the description below. Jesse, give a word for kind of related to your content that people can post in the comments if they made it this far.
Not too sure what to say. I guess if you've made it this far, just post in the comments that you love island survival. That great 1.6 million video that blew up for some reason, and I can never comprehend why that one blew up.
All right, well, put that in the comments or something related to that, and make sure to go check out Bone Prisoner on Darkness Kirby's channel, and that's a wrap.